Last episode I introduced you to Richard and Rose Jacobi, and we spoke quite in depth about their life and how they made the life for themselves at Dallarnil. Today I'd like to introduce you to Rose's parents, Charles and Ann Crosswell. So let's talk about their lives and where they came from.
Our ancestors are more than names on paper. They are the interesting stories that shows us lives once lived, from cows to sugarcane, from convicts to the Anzacs. This is my journey. Come along with me, discovering stories of ancestry, facts, and life. My story worth living.
Introduce to you Charles and Ann Crosswell. I showed you their photo just a minute ago. So Charles was born in April 1855 to Martha and William Crosswell in Whitechurch, Hampshire, England. Now, Whitechurch, I hope I'm saying that right, is a sub-district within the area, and we'll have a look at that on the map a little bit later. Now, Martha and William had around 11 children. It's a bit difficult to trace back, but Charles was the third child born in that family. In the 1871 England and Wales census, it shows Charles' father was 51 and a labourer, and Charles was actually noted as himself as a labourer aged 15. She was born in July 1854, a year before Charles, to Rebecca and Daniel Duckett. She was the second child born out of the 11 to 14 children. We're not quite sure how many were born in that family. Sadly, a few children did die in their infant years. In 1861, the England and Wales census shows Anne, a 6-year-old, living with her family at King's Cleary, the Dell, which is a small village within that area of England. I'll show you on the map. The 1871 census of England and Wales, it shows that Anne was living with a 79-year-old Lucy Twitchen, and she was the servant for this lady. The family of the Twitchens were very prosperous farmers, so Anne was living with her, age 16, as a servant. Not surprisingly, Charles and Anne's lives crossed. Romance blossomed, and they were married on the 19th of April 1873. Less than a year later, their first child was born. Then they had 3 more children in England. 10 years later, 1883, they decided to make the move from England to immigrate to Australia. On the 4th of July 1883, the Crosswell family, Charles and Anne, Alan, Charles, Sarah and Anne, the children, 4 of them, boarded the Duke of Westminster with their voyage destination to be Australia, Queensland. They travelled by assisted passage. Now this passage or voyage was meant to take only 4 months, but it was a treacherous 4 months, and sadly Sarah passed away. She was buried at sea. In September 1883, the Duke of Westminster ship was put into quarantine due to an outbreak of smallpox. The newspaper article in the Courier Mail on the 5th of September 1883, page 5, I'll flick it up in a minute, suggests smallpox was brought on board from the Rockhampton port. Now the Duke of Westminster travelled down the coast of Queensland, stopping at Cooktown, Townsville, Bowen, Mackay, Rockhampton and Brisbane, where many passengers disembarked, making their life in Australia.
On the Duke of Westminster, for people disembarking in Brisbane, 494 people embarked, 5 births, 7 deaths, 492 people landed in Brisbane.
Imagine leaving England in summertime, then arriving in Australia in our summertime. It would be very different. A foreign land, grieving their daughter, uncertain about their future, and all of their belongings in a few small ports. Would have been scary. Charles and Ann set up home in Redland Bay, but they didn't stay there very long. They moved northwest and set up home at Dallarnil. Now 6 more children were born in Australia, adding to the 4 born in England, less Sarah that died. They had 10 children in total. That's a lot of children to bring up. And no power, no running water. It would have been a different life completely. Dallarnil was a small rural town that was growing rapidly over the next few decades, and they're established as businesses, farms, churches and schools. Anne passed away aged 78 in September 1932. When Charles knew his time had come, he was age 80 and he wandered away. Searchers found his body in April 1935 in Proctor's paddock.